You never forget your first mobile phone, especially when you're 12 and certain the world is watching your every move. The air in the school assembly hall crackled with nervous energy, parkas pressed tight, and chunky Year 7 backpacks jammed between sneakers and knees. There I was, clutching my brand new Nokia, proud and a little smug, until fate handed me a ringing disaster. When the sharp, tinny burst of a ringtone cut through the head teacher's speech, my heart raced. I sat frozen, willing the sound to stop, sure some other unlucky kid was the target. But as the seconds dragged on and the friend's theme rang out like a warning siren, shame crept up my neck. It wasn't a call. It was my alarm, set by accident and refusing to quit. I felt every pair of eyes swing toward me, suspicion growing with each beat of that awful tune. My face burned as my hopes for invisibility shattered. What followed turned embarrassment into legend, but in that moment all I wanted was for my cheap polyphonic ringtone and time itself to shut off. Year 7 and the mighty Nokia. Most kids dream of their first taste of independence. For me, freedom came not with a set of house keys but tucked in the front pocket of my coat, a chunky sky blue Nokia phone. Year 7 meant new friends, a maze-like school, and the wild hope that I would stay out of trouble. My Nokia felt like a piece of armor, a shield against feeling small and clueless. I never imagined it would turn me into the main event. The loudest pocket in the room. That assembly hall had the kind of quiet you could almost hold in your hands. You could hear the shuffles of jackets and the soft click of clarinet cases. The moment my Nokia sprang to life, it filled that silence like a stone splashing into a pond. The ringtone wasn't even original. It was a choppy, bargain bin version of the Friends theme, the sort you find in old magazine adverts right next to sparkling stickers and fake tattoos that rub off in a single day. I'd picked it because everyone else had football anthems or dance beats and I wanted to stand out. I did, just not the way I had imagined. As the music kept playing, my whole body tried to shrink into my coat. I squeezed my rucksack between my knees, hoping someone would just pick up their phone and make it stop. Nope, it was my jam-packed Nokia and it was on repeat. The waiting game. Seconds dragged on. In a packed hall you expect to blend in, right? I planned to ride it out. The ringing had to stop. Someone else would get blamed, someone whose name the head teacher already knew. But the Nokia kept going, loud and stubborn. My alarm settings had betrayed me. Instead of ringing off after a moment of shame, it demanded attention over and over like a dog barking at a locked door. The fear of getting caught. I could feel every stare pricking my skin, my neck growing hotter by the second. Then came the point when the head teacher's face changed. The suspicion had found its mark. He called out and I had no choice. Stuck in my oversized winter gear, carrying a clarinet case that looked far too much like a briefcase, I stood up, clumsy, red-faced, and trying not to cry. That walk to the exit, with the Friends theme still blaring from my bag, stretched on forever. My lip trembled while dozens of eyes burned holes into my puffy coat. Every step was a reminder that I had not fooled anyone, and now I was center stage for all the wrong reasons. The myth of the briefcase. As I stumbled down the row, tripping on bags and feet, someone shouted, "Why does she have a briefcase?" Laughter scattered across the benches. In a split second, my clarinet case went from boring black box to the talk of the year. My phone alarm was only half the story. For some, I'd be the girl with the briefcase, not the girl whose phone ruined assembly. School legends are built on small moments. One embarrassing ringtone, an accidental alarm, and a misunderstood instrument case made me unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. The moment it all went wrong. Every story of embarrassment needs a turning point, and mine hit like a sledgehammer right inside the silent, high-ceilinged assembly hall. I wish this was one of those memories that faded with time, but if anything, every sound and feeling etched itself even deeper. It started as just another day. Then, in a heartbeat, everything tipped off balance and stayed there. The realization hits. At first, I sat still, focused on pretending nothing was wrong. A quick glance around told me no one else wanted to be the center of attention. Every head eventually started to swivel, slow and suspicious, in my direction. My rucksack vibrated with each miserable chorus of the Friends theme, tinny and twisted through that cheap Nokia speaker. Every second, the sound grew sharper and more impossible to ignore. People fumble for their phones all the time, right? That was my hope, but nothing about this sound was normal. I tried to hold my breath and act like I didn't even bring a phone to school, even as the urge to dive into my bag grew stronger. I didn't want to get caught. Up front, the head teacher's brow creased in that way adults have when they know the truth but want to give you the chance to come clean. He hadn't caught my eyes yet, but the clock was ticking. Stubborn alarm, stubborn hope. You'd think a ringtone would just ring out, then stop. But alarms on those old Nokias had different ideas. This one kept looping again and again, every note a personal countdown to disaster. My face flushed. My hands started sweating inside my coat sleeves, yet I hung on to hope. Maybe, just maybe, the sound would drift away and I could stay anonymous, lost in the crowd. It was like trying to hide from the sun at noon. The more I wished it away, the brighter it got. Kids began whispering, nudging each other, eyes jumping between me and my bag. I still didn't move. If I didn't touch it, maybe blame would land on someone else. But that alarm, relentless and mocking, had other plans. The call out. The dam finally broke. The head teacher, who up until then had powered through his speech, stopped mid-sentence. His voice cut across the room, calling out the phone's owner to stand up and sort out the racket. For a long second I hesitated, hoping anyone else would take the hit for the team. Silence. Then, like a wave, the truth rippled through the room. All eyes locked on me, waiting for the next move. My heart thumped so loudly it almost drowned out the phone. There was no way out, only forward, trembling with shame and clumsy with panic. The walk of shame. Forced to my feet, coat bulging and bag tangled under my arm, I shuffled down the tightly packed row. My clarinet case, black and boxy, bounced against my knees like it was mocking me too. Feet blocked my escape, making every step a battle. The Friends theme still blared, louder with each awkward move. My cheeks burned, my lips started shaking. Anger and embarrassment mixing until I wasn't sure which was worse. Kids' faces swam past, some shooting smirks, others wincing in second-hand discomfort. For a minute it felt like tripping through a spotlight you just can't escape. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, someone shouted about the briefcase, cementing my fate for days, maybe weeks. When time slowed down, that short walk from my seat to the hall exit seemed to stretch on forever, each second pulling tighter. Phones today would let you hush an alarm with a tap or a squeeze. That old Nokia was stubborn, demanding every step of the way. I tugged my coat tighter, trying to shield my face, but it was too late. Everyone saw, everyone remembered. It's rare, at age 12, to feel so sure you'll never live something down. Yet in that moment, the ringing didn't just fill the hall, it filled my memory for years. Why did it play? The mystery of accidental alarms. Have you ever wondered why a phone suddenly starts playing a sound that seems totally unexpected, especially in the most embarrassing moments? That's exactly what happened with my Nokia during that assembly. It was not a call but an alarm I didn't remember setting, and it just wouldn't quit. These accidental alarms might feel like your phone has a mind of its own, but there's a perfectly simple reason why it keeps going, and why it chose that dreadful Friends theme. The alarm that wouldn't stop. Old Nokia phones had a simple but stubborn alarm system. Once it started ringing, it expected you to do something. Silence it, snooze it, or turn the phone off. Unlike modern smartphones that let you swipe away alarms or let them fade after a while, those Nokias just kept repeating the sound. If you didn't press any button, the alarm would blast on, filling the room with whatever ringtone you had chosen. That meant my cheap Friends-themed ringtone wasn't just a one-time blast. It was on a loop, demanding attention, no matter how much I hoped it would just stop on its own. It's like a sprinkler stuck on full blast, only louder and with no way to turn it off quietly unless you fumbled through your phone controls. Why the Friends theme? The Nokia alarm sounds were often user-customizable, letting you pick from built-in tunes or download ringtones from magazines and cheap websites. The Friends theme was a popular choice back then, familiar, catchy, and a little cheeky. Even if you didn't like the show, getting this tune as an alarm was a common mistake, or sometimes a joke preset. For me, it was a ringtone picked on a whim, probably from a magazine CD or a cheap download, something I hadn't really thought about. Yet that choice became a soundtrack to my humiliation in front of 200 students. The irony? It wasn't even a call or an emergency, but a forgotten alarm silently ticking away in my pocket until it exploded to life. Accidental alarms, how do they happen? Most accidental alarms start without the user realizing. Maybe you set it over the weekend and forgot. Maybe you pressed buttons randomly while exploring the phone's features. Sometimes, even the simplest mistake, like turning on a daily repeat alarm without meaning to, can have you caught off guard. Here are a few common reasons these surprise alarms go off. Forgetting you set one. It's easy to set an alarm to repeat every day and then forget. Default alarm settings. Some phones come with a default alarm tone set to repeat, so if it's ever turned on, it plays on loop. No auto snooze. Unlike many modern phones, older Nokia alarms don't quiet down automatically. No quick stop. The alarm won't quit unless you press a button, making it perfect for embarrassing school moments. Ringtone and alarm confusion. Sometimes ringtones and alarms share the same sounds, adding to the surprise. When silence isn't an option, you might think keeping the phone silent would prevent an alarm, but alarms usually ignore silent mode. The whole point is to wake you up or get your attention, so they blast through mute settings and volume controls. That explains why my phone cut through the hush of assembly like a fire alarm, even though my volume felt low. The alarm sound was in charge, and unless I hit the right buttons, it was going to keep making sure everyone heard it. Next time the unexpected alarm blares out, remember, your phone isn't out to get you. It's just following the settings you gave it, sometimes accidentally and stubbornly. And if you happen to hear that familiar Friends theme tune, you're not alone in this accidental ringtone saga. In the puzzle of Nokia alarms, the mystery is usually the result of one simple mistake: an alarm set and forgotten, playing on loop until stopped. The walk of shame, surviving school after. After that unforgettable ringtone exploded in assembly, the hardest part wasn't just the noise, it was what came next. The slow, painful walk from my seat to the hall exit felt like a lifetime trapped in the spotlight of embarrassment. School can be a tough crowd, especially in year 7, and survival took more than just waiting for the sound to stop. The moment you become the story. In the blink of an eye, I went from part of the crowd to the headline act of the school day. That walk was a test in vulnerability, carrying not just my Nokia but also a heavy coat, a year 7 rucksack, and my clarinet case, all while an out-of-tune Friends theme blasted like an alarm inside a crowded classroom. The students' eyes felt like spotlights burning into my back. I could hear their whispers, the polite coughs hiding snickers, and worst of all, the unexpected shout that twisted my whole story. "Why does she have a briefcase?" That moment stuck harder than the ringtone itself, turning my clarinet case into a symbol of my humiliation. Suddenly, I wasn't just the kid with a ringing phone, I was the one with the briefcase, locked into a school myth that would stick for weeks. Awkward steps and tangled feet. Every step was a struggle. The narrow space between rows meant I had to clamber over other kids' feet and backpacks, which felt more like obstacles than classmates. My coat flared out like armor trying to hide me, but it brought more attention than comfort. My lip trembled with a mix of frustration and fear. I hated trouble, but now trouble had found me in the loudest way possible. It was hard moving forward. It was like walking through invisible barbs of judgment and teasing. The soundtrack to shame. The Friends theme didn't just play in my ears, it echoed through the halls, bouncing off walls and embedding itself in everyone's memory. It wasn't just a ringtone or alarm, it was the heartbeat of my embarrassment that day. No pause button, no quick mute, just relentless looping until I surrendered and faced the music. Every note felt like it stretched the moment, turning seconds into minutes that felt endless. Behind the eyes of others. For the crowd, it was easy to be entertained. Some smiled or rolled their eyes, some made jokes in hushed voices, and others just watched, waiting to see what would happen next. For me, it was like time slowed and the world shrank until it was just me and that blaring phone. The warmth spreading on my cheeks wasn't from the assembly heater, it was the heat of being caught and exposed. Holding onto your dignity. Even in the middle of that mess, I had to remind myself of one thing: this moment didn't define me. The walk was humiliating, but it was temporary. And every awkward shuffle, every whispered comment became a memory I'd eventually laugh at, even if I couldn't stop my lip from trembling right then. Looking back, the walk of shame was part of a bigger story, an unplanned rite of passage, a lesson in surviving those moments when your phone is louder than your courage. It marked the start of learning how to carry shame with a bit less weight and maybe how to pick different alarms next time. Looking back, what the Nokia puzzle taught me. Looking back on that moment when my Nokia phone blasted the world's worst version of the Friends theme during assembly, I see more than just embarrassment. That one rough day quietly handed me lessons that stretched far beyond a ringing alarm. It was a puzzle, one piece of simple technology mixing with human nerves, a crowd, and the heavy weight of silence broken at exactly the wrong time. The Nokia phone, after all, was more than a gadget. It was a signal of growing up, a sign you belonged somewhere new, yet still a tiny trap waiting to snap shut in an unexpected alarm. The puzzle, what this small device revealed about control, patience, and facing those moments where you feel completely exposed. The power of small moments. What sticks isn't just the loud ringtone or all those eyes pointed my way. It's how a tiny beep can twist into a mountain of shame. A phone's alarm isn't life-changing, but in that crowded hall, it became a moment where everything could have gone differently if only I'd known to press a button faster. That taught me just how much small things matter, how a seemingly minor mistake can shape a day or even a whole year's reputation. I learned that even the smallest detail, a forgotten alarm, can take on huge importance because of who's watching. Acceptance over control. One key lesson is about control, or rather the lack of it. That Nokia alarm didn't care what I wanted. It kept ringing loudly, breaking the rules of quiet, demanding attention. It showed me early that sometimes you just can't stop what's happening, no matter how badly you want to. Waiting it out wasn't brave, it was hope mixed with panic, a gamble that things might fix themselves. What I learned is that acceptance, acknowledging what's out of your hands, is a stronger kind of power. The second I owned the moment by standing up and facing the crowd, the weight shrank slightly. Names and labels stick. The briefcase shout during that walk still echoes in my mind. At 12, that moment crystallized how quickly others can reshape your identity based on one event. Suddenly, I wasn't just the kid with a ringing phone, I was the girl with the briefcase. The Nokia puzzle was about more than sound, it was about how stories get built in schools from tiny sparks, growing larger as they spread. The lesson here is to hold on to your own story before others shape it for you. It reminded me that labels stick, but they don't have to define you forever. Tech is always kind. Nokia phones were sturdy and simple, but their alarms were stubborn. There was no graceful silence or pause button. It taught me a rougher lesson about technology: it's only as good as how well you understand it. That device didn't mean to embarrass me, but it did because I didn't know its quirks. It's a reminder that any tech you use needs respect and attention, especially when it can call unwanted attention. Understanding your gadgets isn't a luxury, it's a small armor against avoidable mishaps. Growth comes wrapped in awkwardness. Looking back now, I cringe at the soundtrack of my humiliation, but I also see it as a rite of passage. The Nokia phone puzzle showed me that growth often arrives through awkward moments that feel endless at the time but fade with perspective. Every uncomfortable step, every stifled laugh, every briefcase shout was building resilience. It's a sharp contrast between wishing the moment would vanish and knowing it's shaping your future self, stronger, quieter, more careful. The unexpected lesson in nostalgia. Years later, the Nokia ringtone still echoes in memories far beyond that assembly. It's a symbol of youth's raw, honest moments, unpredictable, loud, and often embarrassing. But in those waves of shame and laughter lives the understanding that these puzzles from the past teach us more about ourselves than any smooth victory ever would. That awful ringtone wasn't just a mistake. It was a story, a memory, and a surprisingly clear teacher about facing your mess-ups with whatever dignity you've got left. And sometimes, that's the best lesson you can get from a ringing Nokia phone. The Nokia phone puzzle is a perfect snapshot of how small tech glitches can turn an ordinary moment into a story you carry for years. That stubborn alarm, blasting the worst friend's ringtone, didn't just break silence, it broke the spell of blending in. It was a reminder that growing up often comes with loud, awkward interruptions that shape who we become. Mistakes like these become stories worth laughing at later, the kind that show how messy and unpredictable life can be. So if your own phone ever pulls a surprise on you, remember it's part of a bigger picture, learning to stand tall even when your ringtone is singing the wrong tune. Got a tech fail that turned into a story? Share it below. Your cringeworthy moment might just be someone else's best laugh.